An open space on a grassy road. At each side are road barriers with notices. No traffic and road closed. At the back, an old, dilapidated wall. A small door in the centre of the wall stands open and fields can be seen beyond. County Council workers have been employed here. 2 coats, a thermos flask, an old sack and a man's hat and stick have been left on a pile of stones near one of the barriers. Peter Kinsella, a heavily built man of 50, comes through the doorway. He carries a pickaxe. His overalls and boots are covered with a fine dust. He stands in the centre, looks away to the left, shading his eyes, then to the right. Jim Harris comes on, whistling. He is 24, wears a cap and dusty overalls. He leaves his spade against the wall, goes to the barrier at the right side, leans on it, looking away to the right. The action of the play takes place on a grassy road in Ireland during the dinner hour of a day in April.
Great work at the wedding below. Miss What's-her-name's getting married. The women were gathered at the wharf an hour and a half before time for send-off. Right, well, it looked from above, with the white launch and the flags flying and the sun on the water. Brave and great at the start. However it will go. Come on, man. With the noise of the sirens, I didn't hear the whistle, and I kept working 5 minutes too long. Wasn't that a terrible thing to have happened to me?
She is late with my dinner.
What? She didn't come here at all?
She did not. Late. The second time in the week.
Oh, 'tis account of that wedding. She'll be up by now. They don't feel time or weather when they're waiting for a bride.
I will make her feel something, leaving her father without his dinner.
Is it at the wharf she is, or the far side of the river watching the start?
Do I or anyone know where any'd be? Only sisters you have, but they would give more thought than the daughter of mine. She'll be sorry yet.
It's because of that day. The women can think of nothing else. They're all the same. Molly and Dot were up at dawn. Would it be a fine day? You'd think there were guests invited. They know her by her eyesight, so they'll go stand in the crowd and see how she'll look.
If I knew where to get Annie.
Annie'll be here now. They're scattering away off the wharf, though I can't pick her out.
And how would you? More than likely she's off with Roddy man, philandering with the like of him. That's all she's fit for. Or with any boy she can lay hold of.
If she goes on a bit itself, 'tis because she must. She's made that way and she can't help it.
I will make her help it. You're in no great hurry to have her.
You know that I am.
Why don't you marry her, so? And stop her going on? You're in no hurry.
I want that, and you know it. How can I force the girl?
Hey, how indeed. You're very young.
Peter goes to the door, stands there looking out across the fields. Jim sits down on the stones and begins his dinner. Mrs. Marks, a big woman of 55 or so, wearing a shawl with a basket on her arm, comes to the barrier at the right. She pushes the barrier a little aside and comes on.
Can I pass this way? 'Twould be a shortcut.
Are you a motor car, ma'am? No, you're not. 'Tis 2 legs and under you. You can and welcome.
I thought you had sense in your head, Jim Harris.
Puts down her basket, resting it against a large stone.
Oh, there's a terrible weight in that basket, there is.
'Twas a great send-off they gave the bridal pair.
It was so. I wasn't on the wharf on account of my bad knee, but I seen from above. And I met some of them now. I'm glad she had it fine, the poor young thing.
What poor is Honor? Isn't it the day of her life?
You could never tell that. It might. They say he wanted the money. They say it was signed and settled before ever he seen her. Well, she'll have her red carpet and all her fine show for her poor heart to feed on. That's the way.
Fine day, ma'am.
It is indeed, thanks be to God. 'Tis a day of the earth and the sky.
With the whole month of April floating around.
And he was telling me the bride looked like a queen.
Did you see Annie? She didn't bring me my dinner.
Oh, look at that now. A shame and a sin. She's off across the field with that Roddy man.
I'll go call her.
Stop where you are.
You had a right to keep that to yourself.
To leave her father without her bit. And she romancing around.
Oh, he'll have her life.
She earns what she gets. Why don't she settle down? She's a bold, wild thing.
He treats her cruel. It don't do her any good.
And what would do her good? That Annie Kinsella will be romancing all her life with whoever she can.
The way he treats her, it only drives her on worse.
You're too soft-hearted, Jimmy Harris. But I've a great wish for you, for the sake of your mother, God rest her soul. You'd be better to give Annie up.
Give up me life, is it?
You have 2 good sisters. Can't you settle with them? Or get a sensible girl? I'm telling you now, that one, her head is full of folly, and her heart is full of wile. She'd do you no good.
You have a lot of old talk. They're not done with it yet.
I was thinking of my marriage day when I was looking at them 2. 'Tis a thought would sadden anyone.
How is that, Mrs. Marks?
That's how it is. The truth is the best to be told in the end.
Haven't you Bill and Mary in the little place? You didn't fare bad.
Bad? What have bad or good to do with it? That is outside of the question. For 20 years you're thinking of that day, and for 30 years you're looking back at it. After that you don't mind. You haven't the feeling, except in maybe an odd day like today.
She takes her basket. They hear someone coming. Mrs. Marks puts down her basket again and waits, expectant.
Annie. And you may be sure she's not alone.
Annie Kinsella is seen in the doorway. She is about 20. She wears a dark shawl, a red dress, black shoes and stockings, all very neat. Her hair is bright gold. With her is Roddy Mann, a big, lounging figure, cap pulled low over his eyes.
Now, Roddy, don't come any farther.
Low tone. Mrs. Marks listens. Jim moves a little farther from the doorway.
Give me the tin.
What did you promise?
Wait first till I tell you how she looked.
You've told me already. You've talked of nothing else.
She was like what you dream. I think I never seen anything so grand. She was like a living flame passing down by us. She was dressed in flaming red from top to toe, and here she had a diamond clasp.
And there you have your heart. Now give us a kiss. What did you promise? Leave down the tin.
Annie puts the tin on the ground, slips her hand up around his neck and gives him a long kiss.
That will do now.
You have me heart scalded.
He moves off. Annie takes up the tin, wipes her mouth on her sleeve very thoroughly, turns to wave to Roddy, comes in.
Jimmy, it was like heaven. She looked that lovely. The launch was all white and the deck covered with flowers. They had a red carpet.
You're late with his dinner.
Late? The whistle didn't go.
10 minutes past 1.
He'll have my life.
And small bam to him so, without a bit or a sup. A man wants his dinner. He's gone down to find you.
Why couldn't you come?
What misfortune came over me? I'm at a loss for a word. What will I do now?
Take it down to him. Run.
He'd kill me. He'd kill me dead. I think I'll stop here till he'll come.
Here he is now.
All look towards the doorway.
Don't be drawn into it, you. 'Twould be a mistake. Keep your eyes on the ground. 'Tis the safest place. You won't see what's happening, and you won't lose your head.
Is she there? Ah.
I'm a bit late with the dinner. 'Tis because of the wedding. I didn't hear the whistle. I didn't know it had gone 1.
Annie leaves his dinner tin on the ground, not too near him, and moves away.
Hand me that tin.
Annie hands it, keeping as far as possible from him. Peter, taking the tin, hits out at her.
Ah!
Annie dodges and partly escapes, but cries out. Jim springs forward. Mrs. Marks catches Jim by the arm.
'Tis a terrible misfortune for any man to take the least iota interest in a girl like that.
This flow stops them all.
What do you want here, Mrs. Marks?
I wouldn't be in it at all, but for the sake of your mother. 'Tis well she's in the grave.
Go down there, you, and rake up the few stones I have against the wall.
Annie hesitates, looks at her father, at Jim, at Mrs. Marks.
Do you hear what I'm saying?
I don't mind what'll happen. I can take care of myself.
Goes off, left, with a backward glance at Jim. Jim would follow her but for Peter's forbidding look. Peter goes over to where the coats have been left on the stone, takes his stick from under the coats.
This is the best sheltered place for taking your dinner. You have the sack on top of them stones.
Mind your business.
Steady now. Keep steady. Don't let us have anything happen.
You have your dinner now, can't you leave her alone?
Does she belong to you? Does she? When she does, you can talk.
Peter goes.
Supposing you were to get a blow instead of herself, what good would that be? It might do you a grievous harm. Great cheer to see her standing upright if yourself was lying low. I wouldn't stir up the embers in a man like that. Now, I'll tell you this, though I know you won't listen. If you were a man at all, you'd make her marry you.
And how can I do that?
You're too soft-hearted for any woman. Just the hard man wins, and right he should. Annie Kinsella, when I met her down there, was telling me how grand the bride looked. She was dressed, said she, in shimmering green from head to foot.
What's wrong with that?
Didn't you hear her now to Roddy Man? She was dressed in flaming red from top to toe.
So she did.
That's the count she puts on the truth. I'm only telling you now so's you'll harden your heart. Whatever'll come easy is what she'll say. Now, for the sake of your mother, if you marry that girl, don't believe one word she'll tell you. That's the only way you'll have peace of mind.
A cry. Jim starts forward. Mrs. Mark catches his arm.
Be a man now. Be a man and don't get yourself hurt.
I'll keep out of my way.
Jim tries to push her aside. Annie, a little dishevelled, frightened, and with her shawl trailing, runs on. She runs to the barrier at the right side, leans against it and moans, nursing her shoulder.
Now, strengthen your heart and quiet your mind. Don't do yourself harm on anyone's account. We get what we merit, and God is good. I leave ye now.
Takes her basket, does not notice that she has left a small parcel on the stone, moves off. Near the barrier she stops again, looks back at Jim.
Don't be moved to any foolish compassion. The hard man wins.
Mrs. Marks goes. Jim comes forward, a little forward, sits down on an old plank, his back to Annie, takes a small notepad from his pocket, turns the pages, glances over his shoulder in Annie's direction, slips the notebook into his pocket again, waits for Annie to come to him. After a moment, she brushes aside her tears, comes over and sits down close beside him.
Oh, it was a grand sight, Jim. It was like heaven.
He hurt you, then?
Leave that now. Let us leave that behind us. The band was playing and the flags were grand.
'Tis a shame you'd madden him. He'll harm you some day, and all your own fault. You won't have any life left. And what can I do?
Didn't you see the launch at all?
I saw well from above.
You should have been on the wharf. The cheering and the music and all the sun on the river and everyone happy.
We'd all be happy if you'd have sense.
She looked lovely passing along, her hand resting in his and her body swaying beside him down the path. The arms of the two families were painted on the launch and the sun was shining on it. Everything was white or burning red, but she was dressed in pale, pale gold, and two red flowers were crushed again her hair.
What lies are you telling? I saw her myself. She was dressed in grey and she had no flowers.
Jimmy, what's wrong with you?
She was dressed in grey, tell the truth.
It was in pale gold, I saw her.
And in shimmering green and in flaming red and in milk white when it'll suit you.
You're a pack of blind owls, all the lot of you. I saw what I saw.
But why won't you tell the truth, and it's just as easy?
Stop your fool talk. The truth, bursting in where you don't know. Oh, if I could have love.
Will you leave talking of love when I'm tired of asking you to come to the priest with me? Are we to meet married ever? Are we?
Wished, Jimmy, wished.
Annie looks away off to the right, in the direction of the river.
Are we? I must know.
Then the wet winding roads, brown bog waters and black water, and my thoughts on white ships and the King of Spain's daughter.
I'm sick of that thing. Who's the King of Spain's daughter?
Myself.
Yourself. And the bride beyond.
It is myself I seen in her, sailing out into the sun and to adventure.
Are you going to marry me? Make up your mind.
They hear a sound as of someone coming.
What's that? Is he coming? Jim. He says he'll make me sign on for the factory.
The factory in the town beyond. That you couldn't stand before.
I was there 6 months. It will be 5 years this time.
5 years? You couldn't do that.
They're only taking them will be bound for 5 years. I couldn't face it. Every morning, walking the road, every evening, dragging back so tired. He has the card. He says he'll come make me sign it now.
It was a pity you didn't bring his dinner in time.
It was a great misfortune for me. I am at a loss to explain it.
And I think he knew that Roddy was with you.
Is it that decided him?
Why do you go with Roddy and Jack?
It is very unfortunate that I do. I would face any life, no matter what, before I'd go back to that place.
Did you kiss Roddy Mannigan today?
And who else was there for me to kiss?
When I left you last night, did you go back to Jack Bulger?
Last night? No, I don't think I did last night.
Well, we're all the one. You've no heart.
So I must go to the factory. Won't you marry me now?
Annie, won't I, is it? You know well. Will you come with me tonight and we'll tell the priest?
Is it stand beside you and saying that? The ground would open under me. Go tell him yourself, let you.
Would you go back on me then?
I would not.
You would not. You've changed your mind often.
I'll be in the chapel the day he'll name.
You will. And come with me then.
What else is there for me?
Annie, I'll tell them to look out for the place so they can get a room in town.
Tell who?
Molly and Dot. 'Tis I'll have the house. They knew they'd have to go.
Well, then they needn't. Let them stop where they are. What would I do without a woman to talk to?
I want you to myself.
I never heard the like. A good man he'd make to begin by turning his two sisters on the road, and they after minding the place since his mother died.
Will you go back on me so?
Leave Molly and Dot stay where they are.
I will not.
What great harm would they do?
They'd be in it, spoiling the world.
Spoiling the world. I think you're crazy.
When we shut the house door, I'll have no one in it but you and me.
I think I'll stop with my father.
And go to the factory.
Maybe I wouldn't do either, but run away.
He'd go after you. He'd have you crippled.
I haven't signed yet. I might get on the soft side of him yet if I'd promise.
What promise would you keep? I've £20 saved.
Where did you get that?
Not greatly interested. Jim takes out his notebook, opens it.
4 years ago, you said I'd no money. I have the house now. And besides what I earn, I put 2 shillings away every week.
2 shillings? You did? Every week? Since that time, long ago?
100 shillings. That was £5 the first year. And another 5 then. And another. And this is the 4th.
You kept it up all along?
Did you think I'd fall tired?
Let me see. I didn't know you were doing that. Oh, 'tis smudged and dirty. Why couldn't you keep it clean?
Angered, throws the book from her. Silence.
200 weeks and that's all you care.
What would you do with it?
It would set us up to buy a few things. I'd have to go to the priest. I'd have to give the priest some. Then whatever you'd like for the house and yourself. So we could get settled down right.
Settle down. I don't know if I could ever get into service into a place in London.
If your father heard you were at the crossroads last night, or if the priest heard tell of it, dancing on the board and resting in the ditch with your cheek again mine and your body pressed to me.
It is only in the dark I could do it, for when I'd see the kind you are.
Oh, what's wrong with me now?
Is it me to go near you? Me?
What's wrong with me?
He's coming! Jimmy, he's coming! Let me go! Let me go!
So that's where you're at. Stop, the two of you. You can let her go now. Was she teasing you?
Oh, she was.
Taunting you
Oh,
like?
she was.
I know. Leading you on?
That's it.
Well, me fine lady, we'll put a stop to your fun. You can do some work now. Stay where you are. Stay there.
Goes to where the coats have been left, takes a card and a pencil from his coat pocket, comes over to Annie.
Write your name there.
Annie looks at Jim. He avoids her look.
Do you hear what I say? Write your name. We will have no more cajoling.
Annie writes her name on the card. Peter, taking back the card, hits at her. Jim knocks aside Peter's blow. They face each other angrily.
Can't you leave her alone?
Standing up her for now, but you have no right. No more than to be kissing her like you were. She don't want you. You can go your road. Will you marry him now or go to the factory? 5 years there or your life with him?
I'm not asking you, Annie. I wouldn't that way.
He's backing out now.
I might as well have you. Who would I ever meet would be fit for me? Where would I ever find a way out of here?
Have you settled it so?
We have.
You will take her like that?
I will.
Well, I will keep the card, fearing she would change.
Puts the card in his pocket. Goes off.
You have me ruined. It is all over now. You can go settle with the priest.
You won't ever regret it. You won't.
Go on, after him now.
Jim hesitates, goes. Annie moves over to the barrier, looks off away to the right. Mrs. Mark comes to the barrier at the left side, shades her eyes, looking on the ground for her parcel.
Ah, well, look where I left it. Well and indeed, my head will never spare my heels, searching high and low.
Sees Jim's notebook on the ground.
What is that there?
That belongs to Jim Harris. Jim Harris and myself are getting married very soon.
What? Is he going to marry you in face of all? Well, well, you might talk your head off, or you might spare your breath. It don't make any difference.
Maybe I won't mind it as much as I think.
Be a good wife to him now. Don't give him the bad time you gave your poor father. Often I felt for that poor man when he wouldn't know where you'd be. But you have no wish for it. And there's many a girl would be bounding with joy. If there any other you'd liefer have. Well now, well, you'll be all right. A good sensible boy. And you'll have a nice little place. Mind you keep it well. That'll give you something to do. You won't feel the day slipping. Well, well, if you could get to care for him, that would be a blessing from God. It might come to you later. Sometimes it do, and more times it don't. It might come with the child.
I dread that.
What's that you said? Fie on you then. Did you think you needn't suffer like the rest of the world? Did you think you were put here to walk plain and easy through the gates of heaven?
I dread it. Dread it.
Would you ask to get on what others would suffer?
I couldn't bear I'd be no more than any other wife.
Distant cheering is heard. Annie listens, looks away towards the river, flashes.
It won't be all they'll say of me. She married Jim Harris.
And what better could they say? You have a right to be grateful. You're a wild creature.
But Annie is not listening. She's opened Jim's notebook, studies it.
June, July, October, November, December.
Poor Jimmy Harris. I hope he's doing a wise thing.
February, March, April, June, July, August. April, June, August again. Wow.
A good, sensible boy.
Boy, I think he's a man. Might cut your throat.
God save us all.
He put 2 shillings every week for 200 weeks. I think he's a man that, supposing he was jealous, might cut your throat.
Quite exultant, she goes.
The Lord preserve us, that she'd find joy in such a thought.